Dystopia warning, obviously. Now, there's a mistake that's commonly being made with relation to what Trump is doing in the US at the moment, as in tanking the economy, not just the US economy, like the global markets. And that's something that I was doing until recently, which is calling him a kind of like unpredictable psychopath. Now, he is, don't get me wrong, there is a method to the madness, and it's linked to Brexit, it's linked to British politics, Cambridge Analytica, Trustonomics, Russia. Now, I'm no economist. In fact, I'm mathematically dyslexic, so you're not going to get any breakdown economically of what he's doing. However, one thing that I definitely do understand is why. I understand the behaviour, the intent of these people, and that's really ultimately all that matters here. I'm going to go into a deeper dive in my next video where I talk about how this all relates to Brexit, to shorting the market, hedge funders and billionaires cashing in massively by funding the nefarious plans of right-wing politicians buying on the cheap and then profiting from their own country's economic downfall. And not just that, the downfall of people involved in wars like Ukraine. Now, the difference with Trump is that he's putting it all out there. He's making it extremely obvious. On the one hand, broadly, trying to figure out Trump's plan, on the face of it, looks like trying to figure out the inner psychology of Mr. Blobby. When it all comes down to, like Mr. Blobby, my American viewers are going to have to Google that, and I don't have any explanation for why that figure is a weird national treasure. Anyway, like Mr. Blobby, the ultimate aim is chaos, the profitability of chaos. It's manufactured decline and disarray for financial profit, aka disaster capitalism. Much of what we're seeing play out, the hyper-normalisation, widespread decline, like 70+% of the world under authoritarian rule, it all comes back to the failings of capitalism. And by pointing out the failures of capitalism, that's not to say that it's complete, opposite is the answer either. But what we can't keep doing is pretending that the systems that we have in place work, because they work for a rich minority only, and that's always been the way. And you still get people trying to defend trickle-down economics. An adult singing the praises of trickle-down economics is like an adult vehemently believing in Father Christmas. In fact, I would wager there's more chance of Father Christmas turning up at your house than there is of trickle-down economics ever working. Anyway, when it comes to things like disaster capitalism, when that's being pushed by the leader of a country for personal profit, for the profit of his political associates, for his friends, there is absolutely nothing that can be done, because inexplicably the person that is the most above the law is the person with most of the power. Something that we saw terrifyingly play out in Britain under 15 years of Conservative misrule. Just look at Boris Johnson. And now it's terrifyingly the leader of one of the biggest economies in the world, the US president. Nobody and nothing can stop him, which is why you don't put people like that in positions of power in the first place. The reality is that he's destroying his own country for economic gain, under the guise of being a patriot. You cannot trust anybody less than someone who claims to be a patriot. But that's the selling point, the conduit that they use in order to attain positions of power in the first place. Nothing about our decline into racism, into the rise of misogyny, none of it's organic. It's not grassroots, it's not a natural progression. Quite the opposite. It's carefully constructed via information warfare or disinformation warfare. Propaganda's been used since the dawn of time. That 1930s dictator had to print pamphlets. Whereas now we live in an age where a lie can travel across the globe in the blink of an eye. The concept's not new. The method of radicalisation is, and it has been left unchecked. And we are vulnerable to the consequences, and it's working, so it's going to get worse. And with the rise of AI in relation to images and videos, we're very soon going to reach a point where we're not even going to know what we can or cannot believe. And we all know who's going to use that to their advantage. And then there's the other really successful but age-old method of how these people manage to attain power, which is divide and conquer, using their links in the client media or undermining the notion of a free press via selective invites to press briefings or outright denial of some publications. I can confirm that it's a particularly bad time to be neurodivergent with a solid ability to recognise patterns, a reasonably good awareness of history, and a compulsion to be immersed in politics. Trump is deliberately tanking the economy. And he's not only tanking the US economy, he's using the bogus notion of tariffs to get a stranglehold on the world's economies in order to bribe them, essentially. It's not even like he didn't tell people he was going to do it. It's obvious to everyone with sense that this is insider trading, shorting, poker with a fixed deck. A high-stakes game in which you are gambling the economic prosperity of the world with a preconceived outcome. Another age-old tactic. Again, nothing new about any of this. The richest cash in on the decline, and the poorest don't just suffer, but they're forced to pay for the gamble. It's a coup. It's disaster capitalism 101. The Brexit tactic, if you will. The Truss tactic. I'm old enough to remember when Kwasi Kwarteng and Liz Truss invited hedge funders in for a champagne reception the day after they completely tanked the British economy. Brexit was, after all, the dry run for seeing whether or not they could successfully con enough people in order to get Trump elected. And it was also undermining the security and prosperity of a Western nation for the benefit of corrupt autocrats. The greatest weapon on earth right now isn't nuclear weapons, but information and the places that facilitate that information or disinformation. Where populist figures given immense reach by jacked algorithms as the president's #1 funder sets the platform up to only boost the information of far-right figures or figures of use. A place in which those figures can incite stochastic terrorism and create riots with opaque questioning, with plausible deniability. The methods and precursor ignored as towns burn. Then there is the right-wing, Christian fundamentalist, misogynistic conspiracy pipeline. And this is how Tate, Brand, and other right-wing figures get away with it. And they're all linked to MAGA, because rich, powerful rapists stick together, and they all support Trump. He is going to make everyone demonstrably, undeniably poorer. But prior to this, he's already cultivated his get-out-of-jail-free card. And no, I'm not talking about his presidency and all those charges that were dropped for his multiple felonies. No, I'm referring to the way that he's going to sell this, to his cult following. Because his counter, his defence, is the same thing that fuels his popularity. Unprovable, ambiguous concepts, which all conveniently rely on blind faith and or fear. Conspiracies about the deep state. Scientific conspiracy around health. And one of the oldest in the book, something that's controlled people since the Dark Ages. Religion. These people become religious martyrs. So those who recognise these people as their heroes will blindly defend them, much like the Catholic Church did with all those nonces, whilst wrongly accusing LGBT kids of, being groomers. It's all deflection. So is them, laying into Muslims, despite their abortion laws and subjugation of women being no better than the Taliban. This is why offenders, social media CEOs, other billionaires are all flocking to MAGA. It's quite literally a get-out-of-jail-free card, and the ultimate get even richer, even quicker scheme. The recession, the decline that Trump is going to prompt may not even dent his support. It may, if anything, increase it, because his base are paranoid, lazy, bigoted, easily led. They'll believe anything. And the more they struggle, the more they'll blame the shadowy forces, the foreigners, the immigrants, because that's all they will be flooded with on their state-captured social media sites. The same sites that foreign autocrats flood with bots to undermine the power of the West. And because of cult mindset, because of sunk cost fallacy, they'll fail to consider that it's a multi-tiered mindfuck by the millionaires and billionaires that they were conned into giving power to. Unchecked power. Conspiracy is the ultimate obfuscation and consistently used as deflection by criminals. The criminals that the cult call their hero. The people that they think are patriots. Well, they're the same people that are destroying their country's economic prosperity and the futures of MAGA voters. Which is one of the small mercies in this for me, is knowing that they're going to suffer terribly as much as anybody else. The social media owners are building high security compounds for a reason. And they're the very same people that want to install a technocracy instead of a democracy. But I do have to wonder if Musk's pharmaceutical ketamine is enough to take the edge off of the fear. If painting targets on their own backs is worth it, as they live in constant worry about the prospect of one of the millions with absolutely nothing to lose following in Luigi's footsteps. Because civil war is inevitable, and the people that are going to be angry about being wronged carry AR-15s. Now, I'm not endorsing that as a solution, because nobody needs a martyr. I simply understand human behaviour, and their grip on control, the con artists, the people selling out their own country for personal profit, it's not going to last forever. Well, not in relation to everyone. Because people don't live their lives on Twitter, and the spell will break pretty quickly when they feel the real world consequences. Now, one of the biggest problems that we have here is in relation to social media. Foreign actors, rich individuals, they're going to continue to manipulate social media. And as I say, we remain completely vulnerable to it. Not least because we lack the legislation to take action. Because consecutive governments have failed to implement it and realise the threat that it poses. Even in the wake of the Cambridge Analytica scandal and their hidden links to the Vote Leave campaign, which is arguably where most of this all began. And we're unlikely to get laws in Britain that can protect us from reform trying to do exactly what Trump is doing. To some extent, it's already working. People are already falling for it, which is hardly surprising when offshore bot farms have been linked to the promotion of reform and GB News. And not just that, they're platformed all the time by our media because they're seen as good copy. Doesn't matter if they're con artists. Doesn't matter if they're not talking sense. Doesn't matter if they don't have any policies and they're a tiny party. All the media cares about is clicks and giving access to the people they went to private school with. And now we have Trump holding us hostage, using tariffs as a weapon of control, knowing that our economy is vulnerable. And one of the conditions is obviously going to be free reign of the social media companies. Because not only is his biggest donor Elon Musk, the person interfering in multiple sovereign countries' elections, but they want to continue to have free reign. And social media is integral to that. So as I've said, this is essentially America's Brexit, except a shitload worse. And the reason I know exactly what he's doing is because of the obvious recent parallels. None of this is original. None of the concepts and methods are original. The places in which they facilitate it and radicalise people, that's new. And without it, they would be powerless. And in my next video, I'm not just going to give you a reminder of what happened here with Brexit, with the disaster capitalists, but also the links to America, Bannon, the Republican right, and how Jacob Rees-Mogg's dad wrote the book on it, literally. Funnily enough, he was heavily involved in Vote Leave too, along with one of his biggest donors, Crispin O'Day, who, surprise, surprise, made millions as the markets tanked after the referendum result. Despite this being reiterations, repetition, the thing that makes me the most angry about all of it is how humans don't realise they're being peddled a con. Even when the populist figure that they revere looks like a mad fucking caricature. So if you want to see me cover that in a little bit more detail, make sure you subscribe and stick your notifications on. And in the meantime, know your enemy. Funnily enough, it's not the foreigner or the asylum seeker. It's the ultra-rich dickhead selling you a dream, obviously. I look forward to seeing you in my next instalment of I Hate It Here. And if, like me, you're wondering who cursed your dad's balls in order to make you be born on this timeline, remember, knowledge is power.